Hello everyone. Chances are if you're watching this video you're looking for ways to save your monthly landline phone bill. Times are tough and getting tougher, so everyone's looking to save money anywhere possible. While a lot of people have ditched their landlines entirely in favor of cellular, some people still want that physical connection just in case. However, plain old telephone service, aka POTS lines, have risen astronomically in price over the past 10 years with no relenting in sight. In fact, the situation will only get worse as the FCC has allowed carriers to begin sunsetting these old copper networks, and not all providers have a good alternative solution in place at this time. What you're seeing on the right-hand side is actually part of the bill for my mother's basic telephone service, and as you can see, it was costing her nearly $800 a year. That's a lot of money in general, but especially for a person who's living on a fixed income. With Ooma, I was able to get this down to a fraction of the cost and got some really cool new extra features that you'll learn about shortly. Hello everybody. Today we'll be reviewing the Ooma Telo Air 2 phone set. This phone set has the Ooma Air 2 base station as well as two additional wireless phones that appear to run off AA batteries and will connect anywhere in your house where you have Wi-Fi access. It's kind of an extra bonus here. A lot of times this package comes just with the Ooma Telo Air 2 device only and no extra phones. In this case, it actually comes with extra phones for about the same price. So I guess they're running some kind of promotion on this. With Ooma, you can have your landline for basically almost nothing per month, basically to pay taxes and pretty much not much else unless you want to pay for extra features, of which Ooma will charge you about $100 extra for their Premier service, which has robocall blocking, some additional call forwarding, and other features that you may or may not want. If you're looking for a basic replacement of a landline phone, then I'm sure you could probably just get away with buying this base system here and just paying the local taxes that you have to pay every month, and just about it. The other good thing about the Ooma Telo system is that it has enhanced 911. So if you're worried about having an emergency and trying to have to call 911 for an emergency, how would they know where you are? What happens is you register on the Ooma website, you give them your address information, and it automatically gets logged into their system so that if you do call 911, they immediately get it just as you would with a regular old phone system. Now, the key difference between the Ooma Telo Air and the regular Ooma device is just the fact that this is a wireless device, so you can put this anywhere in your house. It doesn't have to be next to your router, whereas the other device is tethered to your router. The cool thing about these systems is that you can actually backfeed this into your home phone system wiring. So you can actually have this Ooma backfeed into your phone and basically work throughout your entire house without having to have any more of these extra base stations. Unless you want to buy them, that's fine too. But you can have this work on your regular phones as well. We'll go into how to do that in a little bit as well. You basically just have to disconnect some wiring from your house. Be very careful when you do this, of course. Make sure you're doing this with proper safety precautions and obviously taking the right steps here before doing any kind of stuff like this. We'll go through this in a little bit. Here are some of the higher level selling points behind this. Of course, you have unlimited nationwide calling and discounted rates for international calls. You also have voicemail, caller ID, call waiting, 911 calling, and text alerts that come part of the free service, so you have to pay extra for that. And because this is voice over IP, you can get a better quality of sound over the phone than you would with a regular phone, just because of the enhanced bandwidth in comparison to the old copper system that is probably over 150 years old at this point. So things have advanced quite a bit since then. For those of you who have like HD calling on your cell phones, you'll probably notice how much clearer it sounds and almost more lifelike. I'm not sure if this pure voice technology is going to be quite as good as that, but I'm sure it would be much, much better than what you have today with your own copper line service. And again, for $10 a month, you can get some advanced features like, verbal call blocking and calling multiple phone numbers at the same time when your primary phone number rings and that kind of deal. You can also port your number to Ooma service. So let's say you have like a Verizon phone number for 30 years and you want to bring that over to Ooma. You could definitely do so. It's going to cost you probably about $40 as a one-time fee to port over this number. I do believe if you sign up for their $10 a month Premier service, there might be a slight discount for that. We have to check the site for that because it's always changing, but I do recall hearing about some kind of promotion about that too. Another cool thing is that you can also hook this up to your cell phone and take your phone calls remotely. So even if you're not at home and your home phone rings, you can have it forward this to your cell phone and talk as if you were at home. Something like this probably does require the premium service to do this kind of option. So if you're into that kind of thing, you could definitely do this, and you'll be answering your home phone calls whether you're down the street or across the world. Okay, let's go ahead and open this up and see what we got in here. We have the Ooma Telo Air 2 Quick Start Guide, the Ooma HD3 Handset Guide, some shortcuts, important 911 information, definitely want to pull that one out, that's pretty important. And of course we have the Ooma Telo Air 2 device itself, it's like phone wiring, and we have our handset. There should be a second one of these in here. I'm going to pop this open. There we go. We got the second handset. We got all the power plugs and the base stations for these handsets. Very nice. And they give us 4 complimentary AAA batteries to power the handsets with. Nice. Let's go ahead and let's get this plugged in. Next, let's go ahead and power on the device. If you're planning on doing the Wi-Fi setup via Bluetooth, you can power this on wherever you would like to ultimately place this device. However, if you're planning on setting up the Wi-Fi via the wired Ethernet port method, you may want to power this on near where your computer is because you'll need to connect to it physically with the network jack and the cable. Okay, there are 2 apps we're going to have to download from the App Store. One is going to be Ooma Setup and the other one's going to be Ooma Phone. Ooma Setup is going to allow us to set up the device with the Wi-Fi and that kind of stuff. And Ooma Phone is actually going to let us go ahead and use the Ooma service, making calls, receiving calls, that kind of deal, and controlling basically most of the functionality of the cloud voice over IP system. Before you launch the Ooma Setup app, be sure to have Bluetooth enabled on your phone. The Ooma device will communicate with your phone via Bluetooth instead of Wi-Fi for the initial setup, so it's important you have Bluetooth enabled beforehand, otherwise you will not be able to connect. I'm going to go ahead and launch the Ooma Setup app now. When it launches, we'll go ahead and click on the Configure Telo Air 2 button to be taken to the dashboard. It'll take a minute or 2 to pair with your base station. Now my service is already activated, so my dashboard screens may look a little bit different than what you'll see, such as the Wi-Fi connection already being established or the Ooma service already being connected. But fundamentally, to get to the Wi-Fi and set it up for the first time, these are going to be the same steps. Next we'll go to Change Wi-Fi Network, and then once we go into that screen, we'll be presented with a list of Wi-Fi networks near where we are. We'll go ahead and choose our Wi-Fi network, and when you do select yours, you will probably have to enter in your passkey. Go ahead and do so, and then it should be able to connect, and your device will be paired in that regard with the Wi-Fi setup. Okay, next we have to configure our wireless. So we're going to go to the setup.ooma.com website. You do have to be disconnected from Wi-Fi when you do this. If you're doing this kind of the traditional way through a computer, you have to plug into the Ethernet port, on your computer, and then onto the back of the Ooma device and onto the home Ethernet port. You'll go to this website here at setup.ooma.com, and you'll go to wireless, and you'll have to scan for a network. Okay, I'm going to choose my extension here. And next, this is where you have to enter in your passphrase for your Wi-Fi for it to connect. This may take a moment. Now that our Ooma device is connected to our Wi-Fi, let's go ahead and activate this through the actual service itself. We are at my.ooma.com, and we have to look at the bottom activation code that's on the bottom of the device. That's going to basically tie this to our account. Let's go ahead and enter that in. Okay, here's our usual terms and conditions. I'm sure you're all going to diligently read every single part of this. Just an explanation down there about 911. It works a little bit differently with Ooma because it's not a regular POTS line, but you'll get the information later on. So let's still know where you are. Okay, we're going to have to go ahead and enter in the area code so we can get a temporary or permanent number, depending how you want to use this. This is just to get the device set up. You can transfer your existing phone number later. So let's go ahead and enter in our area code now so we can get a temporary number to get this going at least. Okay, let's narrow it down a bit more to our city. And let's just go ahead and choose any number you want. Okay. Make sure to write this number down because we will need it to log into the Ooma site in the future, at least for the time being. Let's go ahead and enter in our contact information here so we can set up our account. And of course, we're going to set up our account password. Okay, so as I mentioned about the 911 system, you do have to go ahead and put in your service address, make sure it's accurate, of course, otherwise 911 will not go to the proper place. Okay, so kind of as mentioned, you could buy the Premier service. It's actually about $15 a month these days. And okay, first 3 months are actually $10, so a little promotional thing going on here. You can choose no thanks and go back to it later on if you want to. That's what I did. And that's also where you can do your number port for free. That's the current promotion. If you use this Premier service for the first year, you get the number port for free. Okay, let's go ahead and enter our billing information. Okay, so at this point we can go ahead and plug in our Ooma device into the router if you have the wired version. If not, then you just have to do nothing basically because the Wi-Fi version is going to automatically connect. At this point you'll notice your Ooma is going to start blinking. It's probably blinking in red right now, and it's going to continue blinking in red until it ultimately establishes a connection with their service, now that's activated. So mine actually went to a solid red after a while. Then it kind of turned purple because it was getting an update, and then ultimately went to blue. Okay, so we see our service here is connected because it's glowing blue. What I've done so far is I've just plugged this into the back of the phone itself, but not the phone jack for the house. We don't do that until later on. If you plug this into the phone jack of the house wiring now, you can actually fry out this device. So you only do that piece after you cancel your service and you disconnect the wiring to the house, and then it's safe to do that. So right now it's just going to the back of the phone, and let's just go ahead and try it out, see if we get a dial tone. Put this on speaker for you. And that's the Ooma jingle, so you'll hear a little bit slightly different of a dial tone. And that means we're connected to the Ooma server successfully, so you can actually make phone calls and stuff like that with the temporary number that they gave to you. And eventually, when you port over your number, if you do decide to port over your number, then obviously you'll be making calls as you did previously. You can want to port your number. Let's say you've had a landline number for 30 years and you want to keep it with the new Ooma service. What you'd have to do is follow these steps basically. They're mostly still accurate, although this add-ons tab no longer seems to exist on their website. It's been moved around a little bit, but it's still on the same My Ooma account page, which we'll go to in a minute. But basically, it goes through the whole process with you. You have to submit a letter of authorization form. You have to provide them with your current billing details, the billing contact, the phone number, all that kind of stuff. And make sure it's accurate because if there's any kind of discrepancies on there, it will delay your port. The port does take about probably at least 7 to 14 days. Depends on who your carrier is and if you have your information done properly and that kind of deal. But generally speaking, mine was done, I think, after about a week, which is pretty quick. And yeah, so in between your, the port happening and, today, basically what's going to happen is you're going to have two phone numbers, right? You're going to have the Ooma phone number, which is going to be your temporary number in this case, and then you have your landline phone number, which is still active. So you'll still have to keep your landline plugged in until the port happens, and they'll notify you in advance as you go along the process. And usually they'll give you like a confirmation date, probably about a day or two before the port's going to happen. They'll say, okay, on so and so date, the port will go live, and your old phone service will be automatically terminated, and your new phone number will be routed to Ooma instead. So once that happens, you can then plug in the Ooma device as your, quote-unquote primary phone number if that's what you wanted, and then all your old, what would have gone to your landline phone previously will now go to your Ooma phone instead, and you'll be making, cheap calls afterwards. So the Ooma site over here is my.ooma.com. And we're going to go here real quick. Now your phone number is going to be your temporary phone number until you port in. And then once you port in, you can basically set your ported in phone number as a primary login number, but until then, it's going to be your temporary Ooma number. So we're going to go to account, and then we're going to go to porting status, which I believe is where we have to go. Now, I already ported my number in, so I don't see all the options you're going to see here, because obviously I'm done with mine. But I believe I went into here, and then there's a button here to initiate port, and then you can go ahead and fill in the details as needed. For those of you who want to subscribe to the premium service, which I believe is about $100 or $130 per year, you can actually get the port as a free gift, so to speak. So, if you're going to pay for the premium service, which has an enhanced caller ID featuring the not just the number, but also the name too. If you want like call forwarding, so you can ring multiple phone numbers all over the place, that kind of premium stuff. There's no point in paying twice for something, right? You can just get the port for free and that's it. But if you don't want to, deal with a premium service, and you just want to go with the regular monthly billing at whatever it is, $7, $8 a month, that's fine too. You would just pay $40 one-time fee for most of the country, and that'll be your one-time porting charge. Apparently, some parts of the country, I think Alaska and Hawaii, maybe a couple other places, I think it's Puerto Rico, those far-off territories and states, for some reason, have like an annual fee for the porting. I don't know why. I guess it's because of their geographic distance. Maybe there's some more costs involved with that kind of thing. But just a heads up to you. But if you're in the continental United States, you're not going to have you're not going to pay multiple. You're just going to pay once and that's it. So this is my demarcation box, and what I've done here before I take anything off is I marked on the panels Y and B for yellow and black as far as the orientation of the wires are concerned, and also R and G for red and green. So if I pull this back here, you'll see that in fact the red wire is on top and the green wire is on bottom. In this case here, the yellow wire is on top and the black wire is on the bottom. So I'm just going to disconnect this for now, and then if we ever want to reactivate the service, of course, it's not going to be that hard to figure out which wire to reconnect to. So I'm just kind of doing this as a preventative kind of thing for the future, for myself or for somebody else. And we'll just disconnect this by unscrewing these terminals. And you can cap them off, or you can put some electrical wiring tape on them to protect them from shorting out or anything like that in the future. Once you've gone outside and undid the wiring at your demarcation box, you can actually go ahead and backfeed this into your home wiring directly so that it'll work on all phones throughout your house. So right now I have a phone line plugged into the back of this, into the phone plug, and then I have a three-way splitter here. So the three-way splitter, basically what happens is one line, this line here is the Ooma device, and this line over here is a phone over here, a cordless phone, and over here is just a wired phone I have for testing purposes. So you don't have to have three, you can only use two if you have to. That's probably the bare minimum, I would say, for most of you. So yeah, and now that this is all backfed into the house, I can go into any phone in the house and get a dial tone just as I would with a regular phone. But again, you only do this after your demarcation box has been disconnected from the outside. So here's a quick rundown of the Ooma service and device. As far as the pros are concerned, number one, the cost is really low in this, and it's a really high quality phone service too. The phone service is basically like 20% or less of what we're paying with Verizon, and the phone quality is just as good, maybe even better. As a result of this, the break-even time is really quick with this. So even though you had to go out and pay for this extra hardware to run this service, it's still a fraction of what you would pay overall with the Verizon service. I think you'd probably break even within a couple of months, quite honestly. The good news is you can also bring over your existing phone number for a small fee, and for the most of you, it will be a one-time fee. So you don't have to worry about telling everyone your new number after 45 years. You can keep using your old number if you want to. The Premier service has a lot of extra features for a small annual cost. It's only about $130, but it gives you enhanced caller ID, so you can see the people's names and that kind of thing. And you can also, of course, take phone calls through your cell phone if you wanted to, if you were away from your home. And this service can be backfed through your house. It does take an extra step to do this, so some people might be kind of intimidated by this, but it's really not that bad. As far as the cons are concerned, You do have to pay, of course, to have the caller ID with name. You do get caller ID without the name for free, but if you want the name to be shown, you do have to get the Premier service, which obviously is an extra cost. You do, of course, have to tinker with a demarcation box on the outside if you do want to backfeed into your home wiring. Again, that could be a problem for some people, especially those living in multiple dwelling units, particularly condos and townhouses, as those kind of areas may have it blocked off and you may not be able to get to it quite as easily. Another huge issue with this is that there's no battery backup, so if your power goes out, the phone will not work. That's a huge contrast to the old POTS lines, which worked no matter what basically, as long as the wire wasn't cut on the outside. If this is a real concern for you, what you could do is get the Ooma 4G version of this device, which actually runs on a cellular connection. So, basically, you can basically effectively use a cellular service through your handset, regular home phone line, as opposed to getting a separate cell phone. This is extra cost. I believe it runs on the T-Mobile network, and it's probably going to be about an extra $20 a month on top of the fees that you're already paying for. So overall, this could bump up your total bill amount to about $30 a month, which is still less than half the cost of your original line. And of course, it's battery backup as well. You could buy a battery backup device, such as a Jackery, or we are coming up with a video soon on how to do your own solar generator, so you can actually power all your electronics devices for days on end, should you lose power. So check out that video for the future. And the only extra issue that could pop up is for those of you who have old security systems that still use a landline. The landline systems are not totally compatible with the voice over IP systems that Ooma and other carriers will offer. Again, we do have a video coming out about that too for those of you who want to upgrade. We have the Ring system, which we'll be reviewing as well shortly. That actually uses both the internet and a cellular connection. So, again, either way, if the power goes out or if the line is cut, you still have your service and you don't have to worry about anything. So those are really the cons. But overall, I mean, the pros weigh out the cons by a lot. Even if you did have to go out there and buy these extra systems, just like a mini battery backup system or something like that, you're still going to break even in like 6 months, maybe 9 months at most. And then for years on end, you'll be saving so much money, it's not even funny.